Russian President Vladimir Putin has referred to his country's invasion of Ukraine as a war for the first time and not merely a special military operation. In a press conference, Putin said Moscow was striving for peace and was open to negotiations to end the war. The president has long insisted that Russia was not waging war on Ukraine, and the use of the word to describe the conflict has effectively been outlawed. Now here's what he had to say.
Our goal is not to spin the flywheel of military conflict, but on the contrary, to end this war. We strive for this, and we will continue to strive. We will strive for an end to this, and the sooner the better.
Putin finally calling the invasion what it is, a war, but how are we to understand this? Was this just a slip of the tongue or deliberate? I put that question to DW reporter Maria Katamadze.
Well, I would say that it's a big deal. Just to remind you, after Moscow introduced fake law legislation this March, the word war has been essentially made illegal to even be pronounced or written. Well, if Putin's wording was deliberate, it may indicate that the whole conflict is entering, at least in his mind, a bigger and more significant phase. The Kremlin's logic behind can be, we wanted it to be a short military operation, aiming at specific military targets in Ukraine in order to save Russian-speaking population in the Donbas region. But for the past few months, the rhetoric is not just about saving Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, but possibly about the resistance to the whole NATO bloc. So it's interesting that the word war has been part of a state TV vocabulary for a while now, when talking about NATO's proxy war in Russia. Putin and the state media is essentially trying to make Russians believe that it's a fateful moment for the country. Its survival is at stake because the hostile West wants a divided and weak Russia. Yeah. So this can be an explanation why he used a stronger and more accurate word this time.
But Maria, authorities had been cracking down on ordinary Russians and media organizations for not sticking to the official party line, to Putin's line of using the term special military operations. So what consequences will Putin's use of the word war have?
Well, it may sound funny and ridiculous, but St. Petersburg opposition figure Nikita Yeferev demanded a legal investigation against Vladimir Putin for using the word war in his speech. According to Yeferev, thousands have already been prosecuted for calling a Russian invasion of Ukraine a war, and Putin is not an exemption from the law. Of course, we cannot talk seriously about any legal consequences for the Russian president, but for the war resistors and Kremlin critics, be it activists, journalists or opposition leaders, the danger is quite real still.